Let's talk about how to use the ISO standards to level up our security game. And a lot of people may not realize this, but you can purchase a standard and use it as a roadmap for your internal operations without ever going for a certification level, right? And so that's what I want to suggest. Now, there's ISO 27017, and it's the 2015 version. It's for cloud-based businesses. It's an interesting standard because you cannot get that standard as an isolated certification. It's an add-on to the ISO 27001. In fact, you could consider it to be a kind of a clarification because they did add a cloud control into the new standard. But the important thing that people that deal with cloud applications or you provide them as a SaaS provider is to really get clear about what your responsibilities are versus what the customer's responsibility is. Because when those get muddled and confused, that's sort of like a recipe for a disaster. And here's what I mean by that. Imagine that you're assuming your cloud provider handles all of these security controls. But in reality, they only handle a certain segment of controls. This is true if you're dealing with AWS, Google, any of these providers, or you may be a provider. You could be an MSP that offers certain things to your customers. You're only handling a certain segment of the controls. And in audit speak, we say those controls are carved out. And what the auditors will do is they will take that provider's SOC 2 or ISO and use that to cover those controls. But there are going to be some controls that rest with the customer. So any of us that are doing business in the cloud, whether we're doing Azure or AWS, they're very clear. Here's where we stop. You must pick up after that. And if you're not really clear on what that means for your business model, you could be leaving some security controls unimplemented. They're just not there. You're assuming it's handled over here by the provider, but it's not. And I'll give you an example. A lot of times I'll see people say, well, we use this particular product and they handle the DR. Does that DR meet your needs? Because you may find that they may say they're going to be available in 48 hours. 48 hours of downtime could just destroy your business. So you may need to supplement those controls that they have in place so that your business needs are met. But if you haven't taken the time to really understand what they do versus what you're supposed to do, you're going to have some gaps. And there are so many things in the cloud where, as the customer, you have to take action. You have to handle certain levels of configuration security. You have to handle how your access is managed. You have to make sure you turn on multi-factor authentication. You have to make sure you're encrypting your S3 buckets. Because the provider's not going to do that for you. They give you the tools. They even give you tools for monitoring the security of your environment. But guess what? If you don't turn those tools on, nothing's happening. So I would suggest if you can get a copy of the 27017, get a copy and look at it because it basically stands up provider's responsibility, customer's responsibility. And it just goes down a list. And it's not that many controls. And another thing is if you are providing SaaS services or cloud services to your clients, you want to have something similar in place. You want your customers to know, hey customer, these are your responsibilities over here. And this is what we handle. You don't want any gray areas. You don't want there to be any confusion because the last thing you want to have happen is something goes wrong with the customer, like they have a breach or something or an incident. And then they discover, oh, I've got a real problem because you weren't covering it and I wasn't covering it. So have those conversations. They're not really conversations, they should be documented communications that are very explicit. Here's what we do, here's what we expect you to do. So that's some considerations for operating in the cloud securely.
Time to level up. Level up.